I often find newcomers to 40k posting on social media asking to know which audiobooks are the best to begin with. Having listened to the better part of 100 Warhammer audiobooks now, including the entirety of the Horus Heresy, I have constructed a list of what I believe to be the best picks for those looking to get into 40k but are unsure of where to start. While personal tastes vary, I am confident that this list covers a range of grimdark flavours that 40k audiobooks present to us, and it goes without saying that I am indeed curious to see what your own top 5 40k audiobooks for beginners look like, which you can post in the comments section or message to me on Twitter at Lawstrom. So in 5th place would be FABIUS BILE PRIMOGENITOR. For those coming to 40k from a wider science fiction background, you may find a story about a Chaos Space Marine apothecary to be more suited to your sensibilities. Rather than focusing on the battlefields of the Long War, Primogenitor, and by extension all 3 of the FABIUS BILE books, instead focus on the workings of a mad scientist and how the universe conspires against him. FABIUS BILE himself is a fascinating character, embodying the fall to excess which characterises the Emperor's children. However, FABIUS has rejected the notion that his actions are defined by the best laid plans of Chaos Gods or Eldari intervention. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of FABIUS BILE is that he completely rejects the existence of the Chaos Gods, considering them to be little more than malign intelligences in the warp. FABIUS considers himself a master of his own destiny and the destiny of mankind. As such, his heretical experiments have birthed a new breed of human who are ostensibly Astartes hunters. Across the books, it is clearly stated that FABIUS's primary goal is to extend his own life through perfecting cloning technology, so that he can continue to oversee the development of his experimental new breed of humankind. The series author Josh Reynolds quickly draws parallels between FABIUS BILE and the Emperor of Mankind, with FABIUS's new breed referring to him as the Primogenitor, and also a clone of Fulgrim refers to him as Father. This thematic comparison continues across all 3 books, Primogenitor, Manflayer and Clone Lord, with each of the stories following how FABIUS attempts to wrestle for control over the destiny of his experiments against disruptive interests while confronting his own sense of mortality as his clone form degenerates quicker with each iteration. The FABIUS BILE series may also have some major lore implications. His ability to perfectly clone a Primarch is particularly interesting, especially given the revelations in Dan Abnett's BEQUIN series. FABIUS's desire to master cloning technology also serves as a more fleshy parallel to Belisarius Caul's technological and near heretical solutions, and it does indeed prompt the question, who is more faithful to the Emperor's vision for the Imperium? The traitorous son of Fulgrim who rejects chaos, or the servant of the Omnissiah that flirts with proscribed technologies? And this is indeed a question that should be explored in its own dedicated video. In 4th place is a book for all the lore enthusiasts out there who are eager for anything from the Age of Strife. VALDOR, Birth of the Imperium, answers some of the fundamental questions newcomers to 40k may have regarding where the Adeptus Astartes came from, what happened to the Thunder Warriors, and what took place when the Chaos Gods stole the Primarchs right from under the Emperor's nose. While prerequisite knowledge of 40k lore would be helpful, VALDOR Birth of the Imperium serves as a fantastic opportunity for those thinking of dipping their feet into the Horus Heresy but are unsure whether they want to commit to the Gargantuan series from the offset. The audiobook runs for just over 6 hours so as not to be a daunting listen, despite the sheer volume of lore provided within the story. VALDOR Birth of the Imperium is a novella, and as such Black Library offer it at a lower price point than other novels presented in this list. Being cheaper, some may feel that their Audible credit could be better spent on something else in the Warhammer 40k stable. While I respect that decision, I would just like to assure you that author Chris Raitt is a master of his craft and has produced a far better story than most of the other Primarch series, and indeed a handful of Horus Heresy books. One of the key strengths of VALDOR Birth of the Imperium is that it bridges the gap in the lore between the Horus Heresy and the recent events of the Dark Imperium. Within the book, VALDOR is presented as one aspect of the Emperor, or rather, VALDOR, Malcador and the Emperor are presented as a kind of holy trinity of the Imperium, Malcador representing humanity and will, the Emperor representing knowledge and mastery, and VALDOR representing power and ferocity. It is in that aspect that we are shown that the character of VALDOR is someone who is entirely dedicated to the goal of the Imperium of man, even when he disagrees with the actions or intentions of his counterpart aspects. A case in point being that he utterly despises both the Astartes and the Primarchs, and vows to ensure that the true goal of the Imperium of man remains steadfast, even when those new creations inevitably err. This characterization of VALDOR appears paramount to the aforementioned revelations in Dan Abnett's BEQUIN series, as well as relating to the operational goals of the Alpha Legion, as suggested in FABIUS, Head of the Hydra by Mike Brooks. In third place is a book that is simply riveting to listen to. Darkness in the Blood is a book which manages to highlight both the martial and the psychic potential of Space Marines, while also managing to pull the Blood Angels into the current age of the Dark Imperium. Author Guy Haley expertly draws Chapter Master Commander Dante and Chief Librarian Mephiston out from their own books, to create a pairing which I can only describe as lethal weapon in space, with Dante being the one who is getting too old for everything, and Mephiston being the loose cannon which threatens to destroy the entire Blood Angel fleet. Darkness in the Blood requires no prerequisite knowledge of Dante or Mephiston to be enjoyed. Guy Haley provides both characters with dramatic set pieces to exhibit themselves, rather than relying upon lengthy exposition. Additionally, sections of the story are presented as reflective vignettes, allowing Dante to showcase his flaws as a hero and detail his worries as the chapter commander. While I have found both Dante and Mephiston to be rather lackluster in their own book series, when juxtaposed against one another, their character really shines through. Dante is presented as heroic, stoic and diplomatic, but must struggle with his own looming mortality and the possibility of having to execute Mephiston, the Blood Angel's single greatest tool in the fight against chaos. Mephiston, conversely, is provided with better scope for cooperation with his battle brothers while struggling against the darkness inside. He is grim and solemn, but is provided with just enough of the spotlight to prevent him from becoming tedious and boring. Darkness in the Blood is also littered with excitement from attacks by Slaaneshi demons, assault by Chaos Space Marines, as well as other warp shenanigans that is an absolute thrill to listen to. The story holds interest across the audiobook's entire running time, whilst also having some lore implications. A Faustian bargain presented to Mephiston in the warp is implied to have ramifications for the Blood Angels insofar as the Black Rage or Red Thirst is concerned, while seemingly foreshadowing a significantly different version of events for Sanguinius at the end of the Siege of Terra series, perhaps even laying the groundwork for the Primarch to return in the near future. In second place is EISENHORN, XENOS. Quite frankly, author Dan Abnett's work across the intertwined EISENHORN, Ravenna and BEQUIN series is absolutely sublime, and they have become one of my favourite audiobook series to listen to. Being released in physical form back in 2001, EISENHORN XENOS may feel a little dated than other offerings on this list, disconnected from more recent lore, but the sheer strength of Abnett's writing has produced a gripping and exhilarating tale which towers over other Inquisitor-focused stories. EISENHORN XENOS is comparable to James Bond in space, a story about a well-resourced individual given carte blanche authority to save the Imperium from annihilation. This question of inquisitorial authority is debated across Abnett's Inquisitor series, and the seed for that question begins in EISENHORN XENOS. Across the story, EISENHORN is confronted with direct challenges to his sense of justice, and the audience gets to witness the odd marriage between hubris and the loss of faith in respected institutions being played out through the character's downfall. The other strength of EISENHORN's XENOS is that ABNETT quite deftly switches from a tale about espionage and subterfuge amid residential aspects of the Imperium to militaristic set pieces when is needed. In this, ABNETT draws upon his experience of writing Gaunt's Ghosts to pace the action amid scenes of intimacy and deductive sleuthing. EISENHORN as a character is perhaps his most lively in this story. He is younger, idealistic and far less jaded than he becomes in ABNETT's later works, presenting a relatable, intense and sometimes funny character who moves around the glory and the gore of Imperial settings. However, this change of character over time does not become a shortcoming of the latter books, as that human element that gets beaten out of EISENHORN is substituted by his expanding inquisitorial retinue. Being a psyker, EISENHORN provides new readers with a great introduction to begin understanding the power of psykers, the danger they pose, and their limitations when confronted by blanks, something which has particular relevance in more recent lore with the renewed Sisters of Silence and of course the revelation in ABNETT's BEQUIN series. As this is perhaps the third time that I've mentioned BEQUIN, I might have to do a video on that in the near future. And while it is a fantastic read, you do need to have the prerequisite understanding of both EISENHORN and Ravenor to get the full impact of that particular series. And so finally, we are at my number one pick for the best Warhammer 40,000 audiobook for beginners, and that would have to be CIAPHAS CAIN for the Emperor. This book, as with the rest of the CIAPHAS CAIN series, is what I consider to be suitable for significant others, in that it would be my definitive choice for those looking to get a partner into the Warhammer lore. Whilst the CIAPHAS CAIN series is mostly told out of chronological order, and so you could choose to start wherever you fancied, For the Emperor gently eases newcomers into the expansive universe of Warhammer 40k. It introduces new readers to several key factions as the story progresses: Commissars, the Inquisition, Planetary Governors, Tau, Guevesa, Gene Stealers, Tyranids, Psykers and Blanks. All of these are covered in a story which is as funny as it is tense. The narrators Stephen Perring, Penelope Rawlings and Emma Gregory, who are mainstays of the series, do a sterling job bringing the characters to life. The story is told as a collection of Cain's memoirs, organised and annotated by Inquisitor Amberly Vale. As such, there are personal anecdotes which add to the hint of humour, which makes this series a little more accessible than its more serious counterparts presented on this list. Furthermore, Cain himself is an unreliable narrator, a character who feels that the title of Hero of the Imperium is unwarranted, as he spent most of his career trying to avoid danger and imminent death. Interestingly, Cain plays the long game when it comes to keeping himself alive, and often finds that rushing headlong into danger helps prevent both superiors and subordinates lose faith in him, and perhaps lowering the chances that he would get sent into a hopeless theatre of war. The relationship between Cain and his aide Jurgen is akin to Blackadder and Baldric, where Cain, or rather Stephen Perring's rendition of him, is presented as aristocratic and almost foppish, while Jurgen is simple to a humorous fault. While such a characterisation of CIAPHAS CAIN could be dislikable if he was a coward, Cain is heroic enough, smart enough and capable enough to break through these character flaws and save the day when needed. While CIAPHAS CAIN for the Emperor is similar to EISENHORN's XENOS in that it has little lore implications, it is the way in which 40k's deep lore is drip-fed to the listener through the exploits of such a likeable character, which makes the book ideal for beginners. You do not need any prerequisite knowledge to begin listening to this story. Author Sandy Mitchell does a fantastic job at hooking new readers through the use of CAIN's own anecdotes, in which he looks back on his commissarial career with the promise that those moments will be revisited in their own dedicated books in the future. And so there we have it, my top 5 selection of audiobooks for newcomers to Warhammer 40,000. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar content where I discuss the actual audiobooks themselves, then feel free to hit the like button or let me know in the comments section down below. Similarly, if you've stumbled across this channel, then subscribe and press the notification bell to be made aware of my regular content. For those who followed me for a while now, I have no snappy sign off, just simply best wishes and have a good day.